Hi everyone, today we are going to review another horrible case with you. Please support my channel, click on subscribe and on the bell. With the development of information technology, comments have come into human life. Every minute, people all over the world express their opinions in different ways. Someone leaves a comment on a post or a photo. Others share their impressions of a movie or a book. Comments on different kinds of services are especially popular. You have probably encountered them or written them yourself. This mainly concerns the sphere of cosmetology, hairdressing, construction, trade, medicine, and so on. Thanks to the comments, it is easy to understand the specifics of the work, its quality. Another criminal story will surprise you in many ways. In it, senselessness borders on madness. However, you will be surprised even more when you learn that the customer of the crime left a positive feedback for the completed work on the internet. This reaction was a fatal mistake for him and shed light on the investigation. Finding: March 12, 2020, the outskirts of Nashville, Tennessee, USA. The bodies of 33-year-old Holly Williams and her ex-boyfriend, 36-year-old William Lanway, were found in a white 2005 Acura sedan. The unexpected find was discovered by a random passerby, a construction worker who was working nearby. The man contacted emergency services and told them what he had seen. When the emergency team arrived on the scene, it turned out that the couple had been shot. No one expected that the 3-year investigation would uncover a number of secrets and expose many vices. But most importantly, the criminals will be caught and severely punished, and their example will serve as a lesson for others. Holly Williams. Holly Ann Williams was born on January 14, 1987, in Nashville. Some friends characterized her as a modest and sweet girl. Others considered free-spirited and willful. Since childhood, the heroine of the story was interested in beautiful things and people. She was an aesthete and saw the beautiful in everything. Therefore, she dreamed of linking her future life with the beauty industry. It must be said that she succeeded in this. In the middle of 2017, Holly graduated from the Georgia Career Institute in Murfreesboro. And already in September of the same year, she received a cosmetologist's license. She later opened her own business called Shine Aesthetics. Her business specialized in makeup, grooming procedures, and eyelash extensions. The girl herself was the face of her salon, beautiful, well-groomed, and personable. Her friend told me that she was really good at what she did. Holly had a lot of admirers, but she chose an eccentric guy named William Lanway. Their relationship was of an amplitude nature. William fell in love with her like a boy, beautifully courted. However, broad gestures of love alternated with jealousy and scandals. As it turned out later, William was a skilled manipulator who knew how to properly apologize and continue the emotional swing further. He resorted to standard techniques, asked for forgiveness, gave gifts and flowers, promised to change. The girl returned to the toxic relationship again and again. The very unstable behavior of the boyfriend could be explained by a difficult childhood and traumas received in the first marriage. However, this does not justify his actions in later life. Bill Lanway. William Lanway, better known as Bill, was born on March 17, 1983 in Clarksville, Montgomery County, Tennessee. The boy spent his first years in the love of his mother and the rest of his relatives. Later, however, a terrible tragedy occurred. At the age of 26, Candy Kay, William's mother, died. At that time, he was 3.5 years old. It is known that her husband, who stabbed his wife almost in front of his son, was responsible for the young woman's untimely departure. Before that, Lyle Lanway threatened to shoot himself and William if his mother did not return on time from the store. Perhaps the man had mental problems or was violently jealous of his wife and lost control of himself. Either way, this event left an indelible mark on Bill. Subsequently, his upbringing was taken up by the closest relatives. He grew up with proper care and protection. In 20 years, the young man married Dana Rucker. 3 years later, The spouses had a long-awaited daughter. Madison Kay did not know the misfortune that her father experienced. Parents loved the little girl, cherished and pampered. However, and this time, fate was merciless. The girl fell seriously ill. She was diagnosed with brain cancer. Unfortunately, the treatment was ineffective, and September 21st, 2011, the baby became an angel. Chetta Lanway could not recover from grief. Gradually, the relationship between the spouses broke down, and they decided to divorce. For a long time, Billy was depressed, withdrawn. However, life went on further, and he needed to accept reality. In everyday life, the man behaved shyly, tried not to show his feelings. However, sometimes he had nervous breakdowns and outbursts of aggression. Billy found an outlet in the work of a mechanic. Friends remembered that pulled him out of a depressed state for a long time, and finally, his new girlfriend did. The vicissitudes of love. At one point, life smiled at Bill. He met Holly Williams. It is worth noting that the character of the man contributed to this. When he visited parties or bars, he became cheerful and sociable. Young people liked each other and quickly began to meet. Everything was good, the lovers spent a lot of time together. However, later their relationship lost its former ease. Bill repeatedly provoked quarrels and raised his hand against his girlfriend. When she realized that it was time to leave, Bill began to manipulate the situation with his daughter from his past. Because of this, the young woman did not leave him, tried to support him. But all patience comes to an end. Holly's desire to break the harmful passion even more provoked Bill. All controversial moments he solved with his fists. Holly was worried for her life. One day after another, conflict occurred. That was the last straw. When Williams returned from work, she found her favorite dog without signs of life. Until that moment, the health of the pet was not in doubt. Therefore, despite the fact that the boyfriend denied his involvement, she decided that it was his doing. Thus, he took revenge on her and threatened her for the future. After that, the young people finally parted. Nevertheless, Bill did not leave her alone, calling and stalking her. On one such day between them, there was another altercation which ended in a showdown in the police. Bill was arrested for aggravated assault as well as kidnapping. Holly got a restraining order against him. However, just a week later, the two were found dead. An accident or a double murder? To a random eyewitness who called the emergency services, it seemed that the car found was involved in a traffic accident. The vehicle was at a construction site in the southwest part of the city. It had apparently rolled onto the curb and hit a tree. The reporting party believed that the people inside were injured in the accident. However, that was not what actually happened. Police noted that the man and woman were in the back seat in an unnatural position. In addition, the couple had gunshot wounds. The marks that were found in the passenger compartment were uncharacteristic of a typical impact in a collision. Also, the victims had no identification or personal belongings on them. When the victims were identified, it came as a surprise to law enforcement officers that they were dealing with a couple that had recently been in police reports. Versions. The first theory put forward by detectives was a crime of passion. It was assumed that Bill killed Holly and then ended his life. However, soon, this version was excluded. When communicating with the close entourage of the couple, confirmed that in recent months, the relationship between them was really heated. Holly even installed reinforced locks and CCTV cameras in the house. When reviewing the footage, it was found that Bill had come to her house more than once, wandering around looking for something. But what he was doing it for was unclear. However, such behavior spoke of the man's fixation and unwillingness to let go of the past. Later found witnesses who claimed that they saw the couple in the evening of March 11th calmly talking to each other. No aggression. At the same time, Bill was not noted. Perhaps their relationship was experiencing a new round, or they decided to keep friendly communication. In any case, the initial assumption of the investigators was dispelled. No murder weapon was found, during the examination of the vehicle. If the man killed the woman and then committed suicide, where did the gun go? At the same time, the forensic results established that Bill could not have inflicted such wounds on himself, and every bullet fired was fatal. It looked like someone who knew how to handle firearms was at work. Things like cell phone, documents, and money were found in everyone's house, which means their trip wasn't a long or planned one. Holly and Bill may have been victims of kidnapping and murder. One thing is clear: they were murdered, then stuffed inside the car, and then pushed off the side of the road. A third person wanted to stage the accident to cover up another crime, but he didn't do it properly, maybe in a hurry. At the same time, no evidence or fingerprints were found in the car. The investigation suggested another version of what happened was revenge. After the detectives talked to the relatives of the victims, it turned out that because of the fiery temper, Bill has not once got into trouble. It's possible that he had ill-wishers and enemies, and his behavior could have provoked someone to retaliate. But even that hardly explained the death of his ex-girlfriend. She was the complete opposite, calm and peaceful, but at the same time could have been an unwanted witness to something. Investigation. In search of the perpetrator, recent contacts of the victims were studied. The contents of mobile devices and laptops were analyzed. Curious information came to light. The same number was listed in the messengers of both. However, it was not possible to check it at once, which only heightened suspicions. Such numbers are usually used to conceal identity and are often associated with bad purposes. However, this method is not 100% secret, because it leaves a trace that can be detected by an experienced programmer. To identify the owner of the number, the authorities had to turn to the specialists of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. In parallel, there was a study of CCTV footage from Holly's house. It turned out that shortly before the tragic events, 3 unknown men broke into her home. All were thoroughly prepared, dressed in black clothes, faces hidden under a mask. It was unclear what they were looking for, as they did not take anything with them. It is worth noting that there were many valuable things in the woman's house. The intruders carefully examined the house, studied it. When they found one of the cameras, they tried to disconnect it. However, apparently they were not afraid of being caught and were confident in their impunity. After they left, Holly returned from work. She noticed the stranger's presence and became very frightened. She barricaded the doors overnight and changed the lock the next day. Poor thing was trying to protect herself. But from whom? And for what reason? Detectives had doubts about the woman's identity. Perhaps her fears were unfounded and she was being threatened. However, what could Holly be involved in? Detectives decided to delve into her line of work and discovered the following. Layla Love. The beauty parlor wasn't Holly's only source of income. No, she was not engaged in substance trafficking or smuggling. From the age of 18, the girl worked part-time as an escort. It was there that she earned a lot of money, as she served VIP clients, and personal business was used as a hobby, as well as a cover and concealment of income. In the intimate sphere, Holly was known as Layla Love and dealt only with wealthy men. Others couldn't afford her. Holly's duties included different services: escorting to events, massage, striptease, or passionate night. It must be said that she had quite a large client base. Her bright appearance attracted men, and they were ready to do anything for the time spent with her next to her. During this period, she earned a large sum and ensured a trouble-free life. At the same time, gained a lot of envious people, persecutors, and enemies. The fact is that the woman did not particularly hide her second profession. Of course, she did not shout about it at every turn, but her close friends, as well as Bill, knew about it. It turned out that at the beginning of the relationship, she honestly confessed everything to Lanaway. Because of her large income, she did not want to stop working and considered it a mere formality. However, it wasn't. Her occupation could turn against her and attract dangerous clients. It was quite possible that the men who broke into her house were related to this. The CCTV images of the men were later released to the public, but due to the poor quality of the images, their release was not positive. First suspect. Clarification in the investigation came after the wanted subscriber was identified. He turned out to be a 30-year-old resident of North Carolina named Adam Carey. It turned out that the man is a former military man with special training, was convicted, currently working in a private security organization. In fact, he was a real mercenary and a killing machine. Remarkably, Adam's photo matched the man's face that Holly's camera captured. Detectives got into his background and found out that he's a pretty nasty character. He had previously served a 4-month sentence for impersonating a police officer. During the search in his apartment were found weapons, silencers, and telescopic sights, components of explosives, flashbang grenades. Curiously, he got off with a laughable sentence for possession of such a large amount of dangerous weapons, which means he had strong support and protection. It took investigators a lot of work to figure out the connection between Holly, her ex-boyfriend, and the mercenary. Since Adam was proficient in all kinds of weapons and fighting techniques, his job was to carry out serious assignments and guard dignitaries. After he came to the attention of the police, it was decided to bring the man in for questioning. For a long time, they could not get anything substantial out of him. Eventually, he was detained and given time to think about the situation. In the meantime, the investigators turned their attention to another figure who had surfaced as a result of examining the victim's contacts. There was someone else of interest among them. Lovers. Holly's hot fan turned out to be Eric Charles Mond, owner of Mond Toyota car dealership out of Austin, Texas. All in all, quite a famous person. For everyone around him, Mr. Mond was a model family man and father. In fact, he had weaknesses peculiar to many men, extramarital affairs on the side. The businessman often came to Nashville to visit his son, studying at a local college. At the same time, he was satisfying his secret desires. One day, he met Holly, who impressed him with her appearance. They began to see each other periodically. On February 3, 2020, Eric, using an alias, contacted Holly by email. He said that he would soon be in town and hoped to meet him. A few days later, he again reminded me of himself. The next letter said, "Good morning, beautiful. I'm looking forward to today. I'm in Nashville. I'll meet you at the bar like last time. Text me when you get there." Apparently, the date went as arranged. However, on March 1st, he received several threatening messages. The unknown person blackmailed him that if he did not receive $25,000 for his silence, he would tell his wife about the secret connection, ruin his reputation and family. Naturally, this state of affairs did not suit the man, except he didn't realize who was really behind the correspondence. A private security agency. It is known that after that, Eric Charles Mond turned to his 47-year-old acquaintance, whose name was Gilad Peled. Gilad was consulting for a dealership to solve the parking lot homelessness problem and had a private security agency where, by a strange coincidence, the arrested Adam Carey worked. All that is known about the owner of the firm is that he organized his business after returning to Texas from Israel, where he had been living for some time. However, his company was not going through the best of times. The reason for this was the fact that the citizens of Texas have the ability to defend themselves independently and carry weapons. Despite this, there were still orders, but the security services were not very popular. Therefore, when Gilead was approached by Eric, the owner of the company was happy to get such a well-known and profitable client. A few weeks later, just after the murder of Holly and Bill, Eric left a positive comment on the site where private security companies are registered. At first glance, his comment contained nothing unusual. Eric praised the work done by Gilad's staff and was pleased with the result. There seemed to be a real breakthrough in the investigation. There was a connection between the murdered men, the suspect, and the wealthy businessmen. The only thing left to do was to get Adam to talk and unravel this tangle of secrets. Mercenaries. The detectives warned Adam Carey that keeping quiet was useless. It would only get worse. Slowly, he began to talk and explained that Eric Mond had been outed to his boss. Eric complained of harassment and extortion, suspected his mistress and asked him to look into it. For these purposes, Gilad Peled turned to Adam and his 46-year-old partner, Brian Brockway from Austin. The latter also happened to be an ex-military infantryman capable of performing combat missions. Initially, they were required to find out the sender of the messages and intimidate him. Adam reported everything to Gilad, as evidenced by the discovered progress report, which resembled mostly military reports. The surveillance revealed that the man who had threatened the customer was Bill Lanaway. Holly had no idea what was going on behind her back. After the breakup, the former boyfriend was very angry and decided to set her up, and at the same time to get rich. He found out about the relationship between Holly and Eric Mond and started texting him under an assumed name. When the truth came out, the monitors reported everything to the management. However, their mission was soon adjusted. Among the instructions was to silence unwanted witnesses to the affair by any means necessary. Eric Mond was terrified because after it became clear that the extortionist is Bill Lanaway, Bill again claimed to be the one. On March 11th, Eric's house received a phone call. If his wife picked up the phone, his secret would be revealed, and the most famous family in Austin would be ruined. Gilad proposed to the customer of his services to deal with the stalker and at the same time to deal with the girl according to the laws of Hollywood action movies. He agreed and offered $750,000 for the job. Holly and Bill's days were numbered. Order. On March 12th, 2020, Holly and her ex-boyfriend were seen leaving the house together. The couple then proceeded to the parking lot and got into a car. Apparently, they decided to drive somewhere for a while, as they did not bring any belongings with them. Since the young people were being followed, they were quickly intercepted by an armed Adam and Brian. Bill and Holly were kidnapped. Their vehicle was then moved to a construction site on Old Hickory Boulevard. They were shot at the site, after which they left their bodies in the car and dumped down an embankment. In the hours that followed, the mercenaries worked to remove evidence and connections to the crime. They also recovered the car they had rented for the monstrous mission. After the deed was done, the trio dispersed in different directions. The order was fulfilled, however. The mercenaries left a legacy. Eric Mond had set himself up and clearly rushed to a positive review. Arrests. After Adam Carey, Brian Brockway, and Gilad Peled were arrested, the detectives went on the sly. They wanted to catch the customer red-handed, so they asked one of them to contact him and make up a story. Gilad called Eric and said that one of his partners learned about what had happened and demanded to enter the share. The head of the security agency offered to get rid of him, the same way he had done with Holly and Bill. Despite the fact that Eric Mond was very angry, he agreed to commit another massacre. He didn't care how many people died. The main thing for him was to keep the secret and feel safe. On December 10th, 2021, the famous businessman was detained. All four were charged with contract murder. Of all the accused, only Eric repented of what he had done. The rest of the mercenaries did not express the slightest regret. Before Gilad and Brian were arrested, they had been bugged. The men joked that the couple killed got off easy. During the interrogations, the customer tried to turn the tables on the perpetrators. Allegedly, they misunderstood the task, and he only wanted to get the extortionist out and scare. However, when the detectives presented evidence of his involvement in the crime, he confessed to everything and confirmed the criminal conspiracy. Justice. In November 2023, court hearings began and lasted 2 weeks. It was established that the black plot took place in early March 2020. Transactions between the defendants proved the withdrawals and transfers of money. On March 5th, Eric paid Gilad $15,000 as an advance payment. The manager of the security company was responsible for each employee's bank account. On March 9th, Holly and Bill were placed under surveillance. 3 days later, Mond wired another $150,000. This became a kind of signal to start the operation. After the order was completed, the participants in the crime received the balance. Cumulatively, in March 2023, $750,000 came from the famous car dealer. It took the jury 7 hours to reach a verdict. On November 17, Brian and Adam were found guilty of contract murder resulting in death, as well as conspiracy to commit kidnapping and kidnapping resulting in death. Held was also found guilty of the charges. Prior to trial, he entered into a plea agreement against his co-defendants. On November 30th of the same year, justice also caught up with Eric Mond. He was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder for hire, but not guilty of kidnapping resulting in death. All the defendants were sentenced to life in prison without parole. It is known that the businessman's defense team was going to appeal the remaining charge of the trial for which the conviction was handed down. After the hearing, the prosecutor's office said it was satisfied with the punishment the court had chosen. The detective who led the investigation said there was finally relief that the perpetrators had been caught, were able to stand trial and be fairly punished. However, that won't fill the void left for the victims' families. Their families did not deserve this tragedy, and Holly and Bill did not deserve to be killed, he said. Afterward. Unfortunately, this crime is proof of how unpredictable and tragic life can be. In fact, Holly was an innocent victim in the schemes of her ex-boyfriend and a conspiracy of dangerous people. Forbidden passion is punishable, and dirty money has a retroactive effect. As for Bill, despite his misdemeanor, he also did not deserve the punishment he received. Curiously, with his actions, he framed not only his ex-girlfriend, but also himself. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel. There are many shocking stories ahead of you.